This is the Quay Sessions on BBC Radio Scotland with me, Roddy Hart. We've just heard the Manic Street Preachers with Orwellian, and I am really happy indeed to say that James Dean Bradfield from the Manics joins me now. Welcome, James.
Howdy ho, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. It's so great to have you with us, and it's such a great single to come back with. Tell me why the band felt this was the sort of natural choice as the first song from the forthcoming record that you wanted to share with us.
Well, we think the single represents the album sonically. It's kind of got a bit of a slight 80s throwback to it. There's quite a bit of inspiration from ABBA in there as well. There's a little bit of talk in there. And we were getting inspired by stuff like that, talk, mid-80s, early 80s kind of Roxy Music era, their kind of Imperial era. Yeah, it's that kind of shininess that kind of ABBA used to have, that kind of melancholia where you can't decipher whether it's happy or sad, you know? And also lyrically, this was one of the first songs that was written. The lyric is about the misuse of language, the misappropriation of words, the willingness of the left and right to weaponize language and appropriate theories and fling them back and forth at each other. So the song's not about Big Brother, so to speak. It's about that Orwellian, the culture of unspeak, etc., and the misappropriation of language, the lack of nuance, the way that headlines come crashing at you through the airwaves of new media, and you can't even decipher whether it's true or false.
What's great about it is with all the Manics tunes, is that the lyrical content plays off against the musical feel in whichever direction you want to take us. You mentioned ABBA vibes going on in there, which is a brilliant and unexpected place to look for inspiration. Am I right in thinking that the piano, rather than the guitar, was the instrument that sort of led the way for a lot of these new tunes?
Yeah, I suppose there was a bit of serendipity in that my family had inherited an old piano. The piano is around about 101 years old, I think. I thought, well, the one positive thing I'm going to try and do during lockdown, no matter how long it lasts, is I'm going to try and start writing on the piano. Subsequently, lots of the songs got written on the piano during lockdown. And my piano playing became a little bit better. So if you're 7 pints in and you've got lock-in and you've got a piano in the pub, I'm vaguely handy. Anyone who ever inherits a piano, the first question you need to ask yourself is how badly does it need tuned? Yeah, it was in okay shape, but kind of like yes, it's been tuned once and it's been detuned by myself and my daughter. You know, the piano does seem to drink quite heavily, but apart from that, it's good. So this is all taken from the forthcoming album, The Ultra Vivid Lament, which I think is due round about September time. And, tell us a wee bit more about it, that creative process. Was this made during the past year, completed during this crazy last year that we've had? Yes, I mean, most of the album was written in lockdown. Most guitar bands have a secret, utter admiration for ABBA. Most guitar bands realise that their majesty is unrivaled. If you can do what ABBA did with those two voices and that kind of Rachmaninoff kind of piano, if you can do that with a guitar band, you've hit something. Everything's in there. It's like they're all encompassing. James, you are totally selling it to us. I'm really interested in this idea of innocence and those kind of 80s, late 70s, 80s influences that you're talking about, because loads of the Manics work has been about challenging and pushing forward and looking to the future in so many ways. But is this you all starting to kind of look back on the things you loved as young men and a new appreciation for nostalgia in a way? As a group of people, because we all grew up in the same valley in Wales, sometimes we do reflect on the times that made us and the people that we know as well. It's not just about us, it's about the people that we grew up with, about our families. You are forced to look into the past as you get older, I think. There's no denying it. But it's not all about looking into the past. Some of the songs were definitely in the present. I think that's perhaps what we discovered. It was comforting to look into the past. It was rich territory to write in the present, but it's so much harder to look into the future. Yeah. The past is well, for Nick remembers the past so well, and I remember some of the past by reading some of his lyrics, which is quite handy for me. And the present was troubling, but you could find some kind of refuge in it through music, through going through the process and trying to understand everything. The future is tricky. Yeah. If you can't remember the past, then it's always good to have a guy standing next to you who can. That's handy in life. Yeah. It's good to have a rock and roll Mekon like Nicky Wire. Yeah.
So we're not looking into the future too much, but live music, it's been a long time since you've had the chance to get out there and play. Firstly, for a musician and a band really who have been on stages pretty much their entire lives, what has this enforced period away from that been like for you?
Well, I mean, the big thing for everybody that I work with, whether it be crew or management or us, and other musicians that I know, is the loss of income is startling. You know, it is, especially for young bands. Probably know at least around about 5 musicians that have just given up forever. People that used to crew probably won't come back to our industry. That's something I never saw coming. You know, I saw some musicians that weren't making lots of money, but they were happy doing what they did. But that was taken away from them, and so that's sad for lots of people. Definitely missing the actual physical challenge of playing music, playing in front of Nick and Sean. They're two heavy musicians, you know, when you play with them, you know it, you know, they don't take any prisoners. And so you've got to fight with them for your space on stage, for your sonic space. I've missed that. I've missed the sporting aspect of playing live. I've missed the sporting aspect of responding to a ground that are well drunk and they want it.
So many of the bands that I've been speaking to, they've been away from even just that rehearsal room structure. You know, you're coming to us from your studio in Wales. Are you guys already in pre-production for the tour that's happening in September, October? Have you been playing much together? How are you feeling about all that?
Yeah, we've started trying to remember how to play the songs that are on our album, which is always a tricky part. Yeah. Because you're trying to play stuff fresh on a record. You're not trying to be too staid, or you're trying to make sure that it all feels fresh. It's shocking on some level, you know, how much I've forgotten already. It's kind of like, you know, but as you get older, when you're playing the songs, you realize, wow, we may have written these songs, but we don't own them yet. And it becomes a good experience of going through it all to try and kind of repossess what is yours anyway. It's just all these things, everything becomes more vivid. You know, your perception becomes much more acute about life in general after being through all this, definitely.
James Dean Bradfield, thanks so much for joining me.
Absolutely, buddy.